Hey everybody, welcome to this panel discussion about programmatic advertising, specifically focused on how programmatic technology is evolving and what its future looks like. We want to keep this session very, very engaging with the audience. So all of you here, feel free to put in your questions in Zoom and I'll try to pick them up while we're having the discussion if they're relevant to the topic at hand, or I'll definitely come to them towards the end and we can probably have an opportunity for all of you to engage with the panelists as well. I'm Ankit Oberoi, co-founder and CEO at AdPushup, where we help publishers optimize their programmatic ad revenue. And I've been personally following the programmatic industry since the last 12 years. And let me start off with saying that there couldn't have been a better time for this discussion, since it's only been the last 2 years that we have seen programmatic really accelerating in India. And in fact, not just in India, globally, but of course, the last 6 months more so, where because of the Black Swan event and the pandemic, we're seeing everything digital, accelerating even more. A testament of this is how a DSP, like the Trade Desk, has almost shot up 400% from its lows this year in terms of its stock price. And full disclosure, I did make a little bit of money there as well. But I promise you, I'm not a stock market junkie. And what's also interesting is that in the last 12 months alone, there's so much which has happened in the programmatic industry, both on the demand side as well as the supply side, where on the demand side, we've seen OTT platforms just hitting it out of the park. The complete change in marketing mix, all the way to changes on the supply side, where Google has moved 100% to first price auctions. Transparency via SChain and sellers.json has become mandatory in the industry. And today about 70% of the market is already using open source auction solutions like Prebid, right? And the biggest catalyst, as we all know, has been the pandemic. Right? So today we have a wonderful panel to discuss how programmatic is evolving, 2 marketeers and 2 technology platforms. So let's begin with a round of introductions, and to make this a little more fun, we will also be throwing at them, icebreaker question. Which is as follows: that they have to tell us about what they would do if they haven't had an unlimited programmatic budget to spend in this quarter. And hopefully this will make the introductions a little more fun. So let's start with that, starting with you, Abhishek.
Hi everyone, my name is Abhishek Gupta. I am the Chief Marketing Officer with Edelweiss Tokio Life Insurance. And Ankit, the kind of question you have asked, we have been probably salivating with this kind of question, not only in programmatic, but I also thought that probably if I had an unlimited marketing budget, what would I have done? But since this is a discussion on programmatic, I'll stick to programmatic. If we had unlimited budget in programmatic, this is actually the right time. Because the consumers have finally started to recognize the importance of having a need for insurance and keep themselves protected against eventualities. And this year has shown what are the various kind of eventualities that can happen, be it pandemic, be it recession, be it any other kind of things. We have cyclones, we have hurricanes coming, we have floods coming in. So whatever was possible probably this year has thrown at us, and we still have close to 2 months left. So we don't know what all will be coming. So if I had unlimited budget, so I will split it between 2 parts. One part is I will reach out to all those people who are, I think, interested, which I cannot right now because of budget limitations. But second, more important is I would start getting ready for what is about to come when 2022 comes. And I'm sure we're going to discuss it later, when the Chrome starts banning all the cookies, third-party cookies. So I think we'll start investing in getting ready for that period of time right now.
Okay. Thanks for that. Samyukta, do you want to go next?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Samyukta. I head marketing at Baskin Robbins. So very interesting question, Ankit. So I think my answer is going to be a little more, I think if there was a way, and if you're saying unlimited budgets, and I'm imagining an unlimited budget for everyone present here, if there was, I think one big change that has happened, I think taking off from where Abhishek was also talking about earlier, where he was saying that people have now learned there's a new consumer behavior of offline to online shift that we've all kind of witnessed. But the offline consumer main psyche is about you want to touch something, you want to feel something, you want to get a real sense of what the product feels like. So since I'm in the space of ice cream, so there was some way that programmatic could evolve beyond where it is at the moment, and it could actually help me sample to consumers live. Nothing like it. Like actually, when you're scrolling through your feed, and if we could actually give you a taste of any of the flavors that we have, like why not? So it may not be the most appropriate answer in the correct realm of things, but yeah, I think that's the next phase, because if everything is shifting online, I think we'll have to find a way to get sensories a lot more evolved with this entire space.
Interesting. So you would probably use that to develop a printer of sorts, right? Through which you can print out that flavor for ice cream for people to try. Nice. Interesting. Sunny.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sunny. I'm the co-founder and managing director of HTT Pool. HTT Pool is one of the largest global partners for some of the largest media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Spotify, LinkedIn, Snapchat. And we operate as their authorized and exclusive ad sales partners in 45 plus markets. I look after primarily the Asia Pacific region, including India. And about your question, I mean, this is like, telling me if I had a lot of money someday, what would I do? Firstly, I would not show off. I know there are a lot of people there to take it away. But being a wise man, because it is a client's money, as you said, I would not spend, but I would rather invest and invest it invest into the right technologies, primarily into AI, ML, which is something that most of the brands advertisers are still hesitating and investing into. But it is going to eventually yield a lot of long-term returns to them. So that's going to be my focus with a lot of money.
That's a wise answer. You'll invest that money, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Thanks. Welcome to the panel, Sunny. Karan.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Karan Gupta, CEO of Alchemy Group. So we're a group of different businesses, and Beyond Media, Word, Localize, and One Loop, more specifically in context of this conversation and the topic today, programmatic and Beyond Media, which is our legacy business that is an all-encompassing ad tech solution for large publishers, publications, OTT platforms, telcos, CTV, no matter what type of screen or format you have. We enable all these different publications and media houses to monetize their inventory and their content and their sites very efficiently. So we run the group with, we know what digital media is all about, programmatic efficiency and even content. So we try to bring all those under one roof and offer those kind of tech solutions to publishers as well as advertisers. With the budget, I would second Sunny. Part spend, part invest, because we're the guys who bear the cost in terms of building tech and platform and trying to make sure efficiencies are delivered across the value chain. And yes, obviously save a portion of it for our publisher friends, because they are the ones who work really closely with us in terms of making sure that this ecosystem completes the loop, and that's where all the audiences exist. So I would say in three parts: definitely spend a bit to make sure that we help the different categories grow, and then obviously invest in technology platform and help our publisher friends grow a lot more with growing audiences in more efficient ways, especially with the tougher times that are coming along over the next couple of years.
Excellent. Thanks, Karan. Great to have you on the panel. So since we're all realizing now, and I think in parts this was indicated in the introductions as well, that how programmatic has really accelerated in the last 6 months. But if you think about it, it's actually a byproduct, right? Because as advertisers and marketers, all we're trying to do is be where the consumers are. So naturally, how digital has grown, we are going where the consumer are because they're spending more time online and on digital sources. So perhaps I think it would be appropriate for all of us to start this panel discussion by talking about the last 6 months, right? From what I'm hearing, the playbooks have been rewritten, businesses have completely changed. So the last 6 months, pre and post COVID, what have been some of the largest changes that, perhaps Samyukta, you have witnessed in the consumer behavior? across your industry, or in your realm of marketers, which you've sort of associated with. If you could talk about that, that'd be interesting to understand what has been the key consumer behavior change pre and post COVID.
Yeah. So, Ankit, I think like I'm going to start take off a little from what I'd initially mentioned. That was more a dreamy la la land answer, but coming to the reality part of it, I think most consumers were like I think there's been a large shift in terms of consumer behavior. Like today, you have a 3-year-old attending, nursery and preschool online, which was unheard of because all parents were always told no screen time. Now suddenly parents are, letting them plonk in front of the laptop, and schools are also actively encouraging it. I think that entire education industry, has seen a massive shift in the way people have been, behaving. You have much older people now very familiar with a lot of digital tools and platforms. You have 70-year-olds who are on Instagram today who would have probably learned email marketing and probably Facebook till some time ago. A lot of them are now on Instagram learning to, shoot nice pictures, put nice captions, etc. That's been a huge shift. So I think your audience in general online has kind of, really widened, because suddenly everybody has learned to, instead of calling the local grocer, people learn to do their shopping on Amazon and BigBasket, because everyone was very used to going to the market, picking up an apple, picking up a banana, and like that was the way we were used to shopping. Now suddenly everything people had to unlearn and relearn, and I think as human beings go, we are meant to adapt, and I think that's what people have done. So I think every single industry, I don't think it's also people learn to clean their houses on their own. Again, in a country like ours, we are very, very privileged because we've always had help. People learn to cook, people learn to clean. So that entire market opened up suddenly. And I think programmatic again played a huge role in, even if you are looking for hacks in terms of how to quickly get your housework done so that you could get back to your video call. I think suddenly you had brands like Dyson, etc., who kind of like followed you around and ensured that you picked up stuff from them. So I think the entire market has just shifted. People learn to bake. Entire baking industry opened up. I think there's just so much that has happened. So I think it's a good thing because there has been some silver lining in all of this. Of course, it's been very tough. But the entire consumer mindset, the entire consumer shift happening online, I think has opened up a lot for all of us. Marketing budgets also, people learn to be a lot more entrepreneurial with the limited budgets that they had. Initially from no budgets to slowly getting budgets back, to figuring out even how to, I think Abhishek was talking about, even we had to do a lot in order to even get people to understand what is a dashboard, how do you toggle on and off, like retailers, getting grocers online was very difficult because they are not used to, many of them don't even have any kind of association with payment gateway partners. Like you have to actually rebuild the entire ecosystem. And it's been, I think, a fantastic journey for all of us because every day has brought in some new learning.
Mm-hmm. Great, super useful, and you're spot on, right? I think all of these changes have been very, very useful, for a lot of people in terms of reimagining their, thinking grounds up. And I like how you linked constraints to entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial thinking. But I don't know if I really like all those 70-year-old relatives who are pinging me on Instagram and Facebook now. But with that thing, Abhishek, I mean, I'd like to ask you the same question, but with a slightly different context. Which is that there'll be a twofold change, at least in your case, because not only has the consumer behavior changed, but also more so your whole industry and your product, right, how it has been thought of, has seen a massive change, right? People are more concerned about their safety, their health now, so how has that affected your consumer behavior in your industry?
Yeah, so Ankit, what I see, while there are we actually categorize 7 different ways in which the customer has changed. And I will probably I'll just quickly narrate those 7 and then focus on what it means for our industry. The first is the family has become more important because they are our support system. Second is, as Samyukta was saying, DIY has becoming the norm. So self-reliance is becoming the normal. Third is we have seen tough times. People have lost their jobs, salary cuts. So tendency to save will go up by everyone. Fourth that we see is, we will actually treasure things money can't buy because this virus does not differentiate between people with money or people without money. The next we think people will become much more socially responsible. There will be an increased sense of vulnerability and health will become one of the priorities. So these are the 7 things in which we think that people are going to change. Coming to insurance, when there is an increased sense of vulnerability, you realize that however strong you yourself or the even full mankind is, there are something that are beyond our control, and that is what insurance is for. So there is an increased acceptance of people on the whole concept of insurance, and that was actually very much needed in a country like us, which is one of the most underpenetrated market as far as life insurance is concerned. So the awareness of the need and necessity of life insurance has gone up. How that has helped us, although it will be a very selfish way of looking, is that we're talking about pandemic and we're saying how it has helped us, but just to look at from a silver lining from that perspective, insurance selling has always been hard and you have to knock many doors before one final door opens for you. What we are observing right now is, number one is you probably have to knock lesser number of doors right now. And therefore the number of doors opening to you has been going up. Second is tendency of people to call up and says, I need a plan, I need an insurance. That is going up. All has really helped us as an industry. When I'm talking about us, I'm talking about life insurance industry as a whole, not just about our organization. All of this has helped the industry to actually show decent growth. And the growths have started coming back with a bang in the month of August and September, with large players showing hefty growths. We also have shown very good growth. In fact, we are one of the 2 companies in the country which have grown all of the 6 months of the pandemic of this financial year. So there is a silver lining from an insurance buying that is happening. Are we still there? Do we still think that this will help India to come up the curve and become in our penetration levels come up the curve? No, it will still, I think a lot of work needs to be done by the insurers, by the industry, by all the allied industry for us to come together and spread this market.
Nice. And you're right. I think that there have been a few silver linings to this unfortunate event, and they have sort of accelerated at least, things in a lot of industries which were probably, due for updates in 10 years or decades, right? That have happened overnight or probably over weeks, right? And if you think about it, how programmatic has changed. Now people have also sort of started realizing that, the adoption of programmatic was actually just a stepping stone. And the reason why I say this is, to be able to explain this a little better, let me actually take a step back and explain what, the fundamental marketing, which remains the same, which is, you're targeting the right user at the right time with the right message. And how that translates into programmatic is basically, what most people call this as targeting creative conversion, right? You're using your right user and the right time in forms of targeting and your right message in terms of the creative, right? So that fundamental thing remains the same, and the conversion being the landing page or the e-commerce website or your offline conversion, whatever that is, that CRO or experience, right? But what programmatic has really done is, which we're also seeing now is, given us so much data and feedback which did not exist in the offline world, right? And things like, for example, if you upload a creative today, by evening, you'll know how it is responding, what are the response rates, what are the conversion rates, click rates, and so much other data parameters. But the moment that has opened up, we're also witnessing that marketers and publishers have started leveraging this new data in the form of technology solutions, whether that is like a bid shading, where marketers are using a lot of that to sort of jack down prices of how, what they're, sort of bidding for in their inventory. Publishers are on the same side using floor price optimizations to increase that price, like having a data wars of sorts. Then you have dynamic creative optimization to make the creatives more targeted and, more personalized, improving engagement rates. And one of my personal favorites is, of course, GPT-3, which is the OpenAI artificial intelligence system, which by the way, there's a company called Visual Website Optimizer which did this experiments very recently, and they compared ad copies written by humans and machine learning, this GPT-3 system. So I won't spoil the story for all the participants, but you should check out who won. So where automated ad copies are written by machine learning systems, all the way to publishers doing a lot of A/B testing, figuring out what ad placement does. All of this has become possible, and uh, marketers and publishers both are now realizing all of this is possible. So my next question is actually to the tech platforms here, to Sunny and Karan, which is that now this has become possible. What are some of these leading edge optimization technologies that have become important today? How is your team or your customers using some of these, and how are they benefiting from that? Sunny, do you want to take that first?
Sure. No, thanks, Ankit. I mean, it's a very interesting question, but just to step back a little bit and sort of cover the ground on what's been happening past 6 months and the kind of changes that we've seen from the advertisers and agencies perspective. For us as service providers, how we have seen the priorities as well as the operating models change as per the consumption patterns of their consumers. So I mean, it's been a crazy year to say so. Quite exceptional from multiple standpoints, and we've seen you know uh, you know multiple forms of content being consumed and multiple destinations being created which were never heard of earlier. As earlier Samyukta also identified, 70-year-olds going to Instagram, and a lot of new audiences coming in and new modes of targeting them came up. I mean, clearly, what this leads to is complexity in a way. As a brand, when I look at it, it is complexity. And brands have always struggled with fragmented consumption patterns, fragmented supply. Even the service providers were different. I mean, there's social, there is search, there is, display, mobile, video traditionally. I mean, if you see the ecosystem, the service providers are not are operating in a very linear fashion themselves and specializing, which was in fact creating further more complexity with multiple sources of supply, multiple technologies to deal with. And I think this is something that was in the making, and the past few months acted as a good catalyst for brands to look at it with a fresh perspective, try to automate everything as much as possible. In the past, we've also seen, when programmatic just started it off, we saw a lot of brands and agencies just outsource it to a DSP, and then we saw them developing those capabilities in house. Last year, we saw a lot of agencies uh, adopting some of the consultancy services from specialists. This year, in past 6 months, what we've seen again as a trend from advertisers and agency is they've been adopting a very, very hybrid approach. There is some consultancy, there's some in-house, there's something being outsourced. So it's been a mix of everything from the operation modalities perspective and defining, and then there has been a significant investment. What's been coming to rescue to the brands is adoption of technology with machine learning and AI, which is sort of simplifying everything for them. Companies like Big ML, which sort of provide you algorithms to optimize your campaigns across multiple supply sources. They're ready algorithms that you can just plug and play into your whatever DSP you're using. Get some significant data inputs from the DMPs or data exchanges, and sort of put everything through an AI driven methodology that simplifies everything for a non-tech person as well. And typically technology is an enabler. You don't expect marketers to be technology. I mean, you can be technology enthusiast, but not tech people. And the interfacing that technology has been doing in terms of simplifying everything and creating a dashboard where you can actually map quantitative data to a qualitative one. You can map the clicks to the brand lift, right? So these are the things that have been significantly moving about quite intensely. Even if you see some of the large partners that we represent, for me, I think programmatic is anything that is automated in real time. And if you look at it, even the likes of Facebook, they've been investing heavily into creative dynamic optimization. What you mentioned about that firm providing facility or capability to create multiple ads. I mean, there are a lot of FMP players on Facebook who are providing similar technologies. Facebook in itself is a big ecosystem which allows you an automated advertising, which is again, a form of programmatic in a way because it is completely automated. And similarly on non Facebook, Google inventories also, or non Twitter or non social media inventories as well. We see a lot of third-party technologies plugging in, playing in, providing lending efficiencies with both on the creative side as well as on the targeting opportunities, where you could target in real time in a very, very personalized manner using first-party, third-party data as both. So I think it's been quite a coming of programmatic in past 6 months. The entire ecosystem, actually, the entire macro situation led like a catalyst, and now we are seeing the programmatic becoming more and more. I mean, it's been lingering around for 10 years. Let's face it, like from 2010 onwards, we have been advocating programmatic. We started in Europe and then we brought it to India as well. But it is actually now that we are seeing a more wholesome adoption from programmatic perspective. So it's
That's
very,
right.
very
No,
important. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you're right. And, the last 2-3 years, at least from where also what's seen, Sunny, is that it's really accelerated. What are your thoughts on that, Karan, in the sense, like, since you also work a lot on the advertiser side and also on the publisher side, are you also seeing, since Sunny mentioned, for example, how there are actually ecosystems developing inside products like Facebook. They're allowing, so much of creative optimizations, and we saw something similar on AdWords as well. Things will automatically create copies, using AI and all. What sort of technologies are you seeing, when you're working with advertisers and publishers, which are really interesting today?
Sure. I'll jump into that question like just in a minute before I touch upon like what we were talking about, where Gupta, Abhishek, and even Sunny touched upon. Even you mentioned briefly, the effects of how the pandemic changed so many things, right from consumer behavior, category behavior, and then going down to technology optimization, right? So ML and AI is only that good enough when the data modeling is given the right kind of data from the point where the consumer is actually consuming content. With the shape-shifting, effects that took place over the last 6-8 months, consumer behavior changed, content consumption changed, and then also if you see categories also shifted so much in terms of the way advertising was consumed, content was consumed, and then all of that put together put a lot of pressure on the tech platforms and the publishers to understand how we need to optimize this, right? So what are the kind of efficient marketing tactics, or what is kind of advertising? What is the data modeling that was working all this while for some categories, and now what is suddenly happening over the last 6 months, and now which needs to settle down, like Abhishek mentioned about health, and to another extent where travel took a big hit. So all the optimization techniques that were used for that completely took a beating in terms of how they were working well, where the pressure, the auction pressure in programmatic for some categories went through the roof, because everyone started bidding for those keywords, those audiences, those that kind of those kind of publishers, right? But I think one of the most classical optimization techniques is the good old contextual targeting and the content-led optimization, over and above the fact that because we are so spoiled with the fact that data is available to us, whether it's TPT or but now with first party, people who are actually investing in the first party, I think who have been rather, and I think a lot of content has been going out around in the trade and different organizations and events and webinars about publishers being pushed to build out their first party, right? So a lot of the publishers who actually have a lot of the costs already borne like that on the tech platforms, but also people who can sort of start now working on that over the next 1 year to build that out. That entire strategy in terms of building out the overall data segmentation and then using that to optimize with the match of contextual. I think all these pieces together will be the right puzzle for someone to sort of work with, if someone can provide that together as a partner. And I think one of the key things that we are looking at is using legacy contextual, building that out to its finest, literally the last dot, right from meta, page, user, behavioral, inferral, everything that we can get on page, as well as like sort of using inferred, enriching people's data on the platform, and then sort of using that to improve efficiencies for a publisher as well as the advertiser when they're targeting packages and segments through programmatic channels, via whether it's through a DSP or through an exchange or our own SSP itself.
Right. And that's actually very relevant as well, since you spoke about, first party data building, where publishers are starting to now really prioritize building, first party solutions in terms of leveraging that. But I think contextual advertising, as you mentioned, right? I was actually trying to understand this better personally myself. And when you look at the data, at least today, right? Contextual only takes into account 20% of the overall spend, which you'll see across, at least, we know for across, all the inventory that we represent and the publishers that we work with. Contextual is only at about 20, 23, 24 websites, right? Unless you're in a very niche specific website. Today, the stage of contextual is very low, which makes it even more interesting, right? My next question actually is just around that as well, perhaps to get a weight on this from the marketeers. We all know that third-party cookies are going away. We just spoke of all this data, which is so important for all of us. A good chunk of that data, which would typically come from these third-party cookies, is soon going to phase out, right? In fact, has already been phased out on Safari and Firefox, right? So that, and people are talking about ID solutions which are slightly unproven. There's of course contextual, which is being talked about a lot. But all of this thing happening, right? Maybe starting with you, Abhishek, right? Has this really started becoming, and I know you mentioned this in your wish list as well, right? Third-party cookies. Is this something which has become really actively important, which marketers are now looking for a solution, or being talked about in the quarterly planning sprints and stuff like that?
So Ankit, hand on heart, I would say it's not part of the conversation as of now. So, while we know there is an impending deadline coming in 2022 when these will be not allowed, 2-3 reasons. एक तो by nature we Indians ना हम लोग last में एक तो वो वाला तो है रहेगा ही, but still what I would say over here is, while it is not part of the conversation, it is time we start recognizing this. Because as I think Karan was also saying, Sunny was also saying that gradually this entire concept became fairly evolved in US and European markets and now started coming to India. And we Indians and we Indian marketers are now gradually waking up to and warming up to this and seeing how effective it is. And the moment we will probably start accepting this, and we'll realize probably the way to do this is entirely going to get changed. So it is a good time for all of us right now that since we are warming up to this concept, why not start preparing for what is to come in future? So there I would like to say that, while third-party cookies still can be utilized, I think we need to work to decrease our dependency through contextual keywords on very premium and brand safe content. That is what we need to start doing. You talked about this company called Trade Desk, which has actually shown mammoth returns on stock exchanges. I think they have developed a unified solutions, and they are testing it. I'm sure they are going to better it as it comes. There's also an organization called Liver Ramp. I think there's a solution called Liver Ramp, which has been developed. So what exactly I think they're trying to do is, instead of pinpointing, laser pointing to a particular customer, they'll maintain a cohort of customers. So then it will probably pass through the privacy guidelines that the organizations like Google are putting in.
Sure.
Time we start learning about these things. I'm not saying adopt it right now, but it's time we start learning about things. And I think people like you, Sunny, Akaran, you play a huge role over here in educating us about this. Because what we know about it is what we currently read and what you tell us. Since you work in that market also, I think I would actually place the responsibility. I will not say you should place the responsibility on you, that you should actually teach us marketers, because you understand that quite well, far better than us. But it's important that we start talking about it now and bringing it to conversations.
No, you're absolutely right. And of course, that's one of the ways to discuss this. And you'd be surprised that while right now contextual and ID solutions, for example, are being positioned, what's really concerning, and personally I've been thinking about this, is because while we talk about all these ID solutions, nobody is listening to the browsers, right? If you go and talk to these browsers about LiveRamp or all these ID solutions, what they are saying is that these ID solutions are basically workarounds or covert ways of circumnavigating the loss of third-party cookies, right? So there's also this thing which you don't know, since it's unproven now, how that will actually play. Because while of course Google is there, where it has a very large, and they're building their own set of, privacy sandboxes and stuff like that. But it's you're right. As an industry, we need to be, understanding this more. And perhaps, from you, Samyukta, what do you think in terms of what's your opinion on how will targeting really change, when all of this data is not available? What do you foresee? Let's say if we were to do some sort of crystal gazing here, and from tomorrow you don't have third-party cookies available, what do you think marketers or their go-to targeting solutions would really become?
So I think, Ankit, I'll address this in two parts. I think if I have to take off from where Abhishek was talking about tech companies like all of you present here, and you guys are the experts in this field. The more you empower marketers and advertisers and allow them to understand, because it is kind of a gray domain for most marketers right now. I mean, so I think that will really help. I think the second bit with why all of this even came into being was because of this entire fear psychosis, right? Like of all of this privacy and ethicality and all of, like, I am okay if somebody follows me around, gets me a great deal, then it's a great transaction for me as a consumer. I'm happy. But suppose the same thing is that I realize that I'm being manipulated, and my mind state is being altered. When you are following me around, you're making me probably, and I think this has happened a lot during the lockdown as well to many people, where many people have ended up buying things that they don't need, simply to make themselves feel better, or in various ways in which this entire thing works. And I think that's where consumers also started facing an issue, because it's almost a chicken and egg story, and we can't ignore the entire ecosystem that exists here, because it's not just about the publishing platforms and advertisers and marketers. It goes beyond that into the main focus point, which is the consumer, and how the consumer feels about this entire thing. I think that sentiment is very important. And I think what's missing is us empowering the consumer. Like, most of us say no to cookies because we know that it's a bad word. Like literally that's the only consumer understanding. And this is almost like half-baked knowledge, which is very dangerous. I think then, as marketers and advertisers and publishers, I think it becomes our moral responsibility almost to let people know, with this evolvement that is happening in terms of how it's going to become safer. And like you said, Google will put like clear sandboxes in place and help us all understand. It's always been so. But I think that importance to let consumers know that, hey, while we are targeting you, and we are doing it to make your buying cycle a lot simpler, because we want to understand that when you're picking up a phone, that the camera matters to you more than the the look and feel of the phone perhaps, and hence we are targeting the right kind of phone to you versus targeting something else. That's a good thing. But I think that understanding, how do we really simplify that and let people build that faith with customers, I think that's going to kind of really change the game, and that's going to be a continuous learning experience for all of us.
That's true. And I think what you're also adding, leading up to is actually privacy, right? As an industry, we've really probably done a very bad job in the last 5-10 years, maybe, as, taking care of this, right? Where is my data going? Answering these transparency questions for the consumer, right? Where is my data going? Who is storing it? How is it being used? And of course, as you said, sometimes even about communication, using that fear psychosis or really manipulating the user, right, or consumer into taking an action which you want them to take, right? And especially when they can really figure out that there's a conflict of interest when, a brand tells me this, that it's for their benefit. So that's actually a great question for the platforms here. So, to understand how did we get here, right? Maybe Sunny, since you work with a lot of marketers in Europe, right, where GDPR has been in effect since the last 2+ years. What is your sense? What are marketers doing there to ensure this balance between user privacy and the advertising ROI, right? Which kind of has a trade-off, when you look at this.
Yeah, I think data privacy has actually forced a lot of companies to take a closer look at their data infrastructure, much more than they would otherwise, and we know it's a big mess out there, right? So what's also happened in Europe and some of the other markets is that brands are making sure Web forms are equipped with opt-out checkboxes. They require user consent before adding to the mailing list or sending out newsletters. Companies are also obliged. I mean, we are a GDPR compliant company ourselves, and companies are obliged to sort of ensure consumers have easy access to privacy statements and can submit requests to access their data or modify and delete their personal information. So because consumer is also becoming more and more aware. I mean, their awareness is on the rise now, and they are becoming more and more sensitive towards their own personal data. They know it's out there and how it could be sort of misutilized by certain uh, certain players. So, but at the same time, they're also seeking brands that can successfully reassure that these data exchanges, their personal data being exchanged to a brand or to a platform, are actually beneficial to the consumer, are collected in a way that is securely stored, and then at the same time securely managed, and probably utilized in their interest. I mean, we are talking about predictive targeting in future. It's only going to be basis data gathering and building models on top of it. So the more and more sensitive brands get towards the data of a consumer, it's only going to lead to more and more relevance, and it's a directly proportionate association with relevance and ROI. So the more relevant it becomes in terms of form of advertising, right user, right time, opt-in, checked out, whatever it may be, and sort of you show them an ad and you get a better response. I mean, it's been traditionally proven through all modalities. So I think while data privacy has sort of created some disruption already in the way some of the brands are operating and some of the platforms are operating in some markets, we are yet to see that in India. But however, it's not going to be as challenging as we foresee, and it's probably only going to lend more relevance and reduce the spillovers and probably ad frauds as well.
Interesting. And on that thought which you said, perhaps Europe of course has become much more conscious and sensitive about it. I would like to maybe also get a context on this from you, Karan, because we have a DPA like the Data Protection Act even in India, which is coming out soon and is already in the final phases of discussion. In the industry inputs have already been provided for that as well. So what is your sense on that, and also about perhaps this balance where as a platform you have to also sort of give an ROI to the advertiser and also generate a certain amount of eCPM for publishers, right? So how does that along with both of these responsibilities that a platform has, also ensuring that the consumer's interests are protected?
Right. So I think one thing that's really changed is the way content is being consumed over the last few years, especially with the widespread of the OTT platforms, the number of them on the rise, with many more following in time to come. The way content is being consumed, it's actually changing very rapidly. So the way content gets consumed, obviously data gets generated by that as well. Keeping in mind the fragmentation that it comes with, it's something that again the onus keeps shifting. Is again like the reason why it's a lot more difficult in a market like India, because of fragmentation of it. What's happening is that the amount of data that gets generated because of fragmentation, the onus shifts between the actual content creators versus the technology platforms, and then between them it's not like it's a consortium, but to make sense of this data, to actually marketers or DSPs or exchanges or anybody else to actually use it well enough, efficiently enough to carry out the right kind of targeting or the right kind of marketing spend that can be used against it. I think that is what everybody is trying to overcome. The way data is being modeled, the way everybody's building their ML and AI systems to actually understand more predictive algorithms in terms of what would happen versus actually seeing direct cookie matches and direct the old school programmatic ways. But I think to drive to bridge the gap between the right eCPM versus what the right usage of data, I think it's shifted a lot from the last 4 or 5 years, from where it was very simple, where there was cookie enrichment, there was targeting of cookie, there is a clear, there were transparency challenges, and then there was the right kind of CPM for it. But today there are more complexities of privacy, ad blockers, even opt-in, opt-out, like Sunny was mentioning, and there are so many other the variables that come in. That today, when you actually want to derive the fact that is this impression efficient, is it effective, is it whether it's for the marketer or the advertiser who's actually spending on a DSP, or for a publisher who you want to sort of yield optimally for. I think that skew is always shifting because of the variables that go into it. I believe that over the next year, once we get into an era where the third-party cookies are getting phased out and completely shut to a point where it is going to become a much simpler ecosystem, technology will have to evolve, but it will become, I think, a lot more easier to sort of drive efficiency, and not only for the publisher, but also the advertiser. Keeping in mind that it's become already a transparent ecosystem, a long way from what it used to be, thanks to the effort by the IAB and a lot of other bodies with the sellers.json, ads.dex, and the entire value chain that has been set up, which is a huge step to actually bring about the drive in CPM and efficiency for a publisher and the advertiser who's spending on different DSPs.
Nice. And interesting that you spoke about, these initiatives for transparency, which are very much linked with the trust as well as the privacy frameworks. And, we know that IAB recently launched this framework called TCF, which just came into effect, I think, a couple of weeks ago, or at least was hard enforced a few weeks ago. But you're right. And, what we're also seeing is actually the advertiser ROI has not taken a big hit because people who didn't want to be seen, who didn't really want to see ads, right? It's only those that have gone away and they're not giving consent. So surprisingly, again, very early, and small data sets, but the ROI impact on that, at least from, if I could probably add from our understanding and experiments that we've done, has not taken a very huge hit because these people didn't really want to be contacted by marketers at all in some ways, right? And it has definitely had some impact on the transparency. I think since we have about 12 minutes, I would have loved to talk about a little bit more about transparency, but perhaps what we can do is we have 2 questions. Maybe we can take that. And for all the audience, if there's any more questions which you guys want to put in, please feel free to put it. Also, tag who you'd want me to direct that question to. Maybe the first one we'll take is from Aditya. And his question is about third-party cookies. And I think the question is, can marketers look at review platforms such as Quora, which are mainly content-driven platforms? Okay, so I think what Aditya is probably leaning towards is also, more contextual targeting, and also these large platforms where they have so much first-party data that they may not be impacted as much by the third-party cookies going away, right? Sunny, would you want to maybe take that, because you work with a lot of these large platforms, and perhaps most of the data that they use, right, like a Facebook or Twitter or something, it's all first-party for them, right? So do you see them actually benefiting when this happens, and perhaps can marketers use more of these platforms like Quora or even Facebook, Twitter, leveraging their first-party information?
No, absolutely. I think especially the large ones, which have significantly, large user bases that they're controlling and have already invested into technology to sort of classify their audiences, or sort of, have more understanding about their users to be able to effectively advertise upon them. So I think these publishers are set to gain from this in a way. But at the same time, we also see that a lot of these publishers are relying upon third-party data exchanges for extending their reach beyond their own platforms, and having an advertiser to advertise beyond themselves simultaneously as they do on these platforms by third-party data exchanges and integrations, which is something where a lot of effort will have to be done, and I think it will open up some of the privately kept secrets by these large platforms to be able to share or integrate with other first-party data opportunities and create a much more rich audience and much more qualified audience for brands and advertisers to reach out to.
Great, excellent. And I think we have, what are your thoughts on that, Karan, by the way, before I get to the next question, which is actually to both of you as well?
Sorry, I didn't catch the last part. Do you mind repeating
Sure.
that?
So the question is, once third-party cookies go away, right, for marketers, do you see them using these platforms a lot more, which have their own first-party data like a Facebook, Twitter, or instead of display and targeting publishers, which will have a lot of time to build, they'll require a lot of efforts to build their first party data banks, but something which already exists with all these platforms.
Sure, it boils down to the same thing, right? I mean, I think a lot of them would still rely on how well they can sort of segment and package that data. But the good old school contextual will not go away. Again, I mean, depending on how they can sort of combine those same sort of strategies. A large publisher like a Facebook or a Quora, someone who has great reach where they're building out this already, it's by de facto in silo getting built out. They will still need to sort of enrich that data with a lot more important data points that that user would need to fulfill, because a huge portion of programmatic also doesn't just get targeted based on the site. It also takes into consideration purely an audience without actually having to see where that audience is, in terms of the site or the app or wherever it is. I think the first party, the way people are building out, and I think the 1 year that we have, the 2 years that we had rather, is a good amount of time for someone to sort of build out these data banks, in consortium with whether, like say a business like ours, where we work with some of the largest publishers in APAC. We have a lot of audience, a lot of reach to actually build this out with the publishers, offer solutions in tandem, and then work together in building it out. So I don't see too much of a challenge that it would be a preferential head start, but I think everybody has the time and to actually go about building their own first party or all the data sets that they need to actually catch up with the rest.
Excellent. Great. I think we have some more questions, but I think it's more about TV advertising and the privacy bandwagon. There's actually another one which is about revenue generation, and I think that's for you, Sunny and Karan, which is which revenue generation strategies would publishers now pursue in addition to advertising revenue? So are there more sort of opportunities apart from programmatic or advertising revenue also which you're seeing publishers adopt?
So I can start with that. I think a lot of the budgets are moving programmatic. It's become a lot more self-sufficient in terms of an ecosystem where people are, instead of going direct brand, direct advertising, direct creative, it's all the technology platforms and publishers, be it small blogs, or even on a WordPress or a blog CMS or a Quintype CMS kind of platform versus a large publication or an OTT platform. Everybody has an option of going programmatic. It's not like there are barriers to create revenue, generating revenue. There are again a lot of strategies in terms of display, video, native, different formats. There are definitely costs in terms of technology platforms that you can work with or partner with. But at the end of the day, I think programmatic itself has a lot of opportunities and offerings within it, as far as formats are concerned, as far as the different kind of technology companies and partners you can work with. Within that, ecosystems like that you can be a part of, so that you can actually start monetizing your inventory very quickly, really efficiently, and globally as well.
Interesting. Thanks. And just to have a probably sense on this from the marketeers in the room as well. So to you, Abhishek and Samyukta, have you also sort of seen do you see any early sort of signs of where, you are seeing a lot of this first party data coming directly from publishers or, media houses, where you're starting to engage and figuring out, if this is something I can use, whether that's, through a programmatic campaign, PG, PD, whatever that is, but even maybe through some sort of conversations where, they have some strong first party data banks which you can leverage. Is this something, which we're seeing early signs of?
I will probably just try to mix with the last question as well, that what are the alternate revenue strategies other than advertising revenue is, and I'm a huge proponent of that, is partnerships. While yes, advertising is sort of partnership, but when I'm saying it's a whole strategic partnership between advertiser and, let's take an example, a publisher. At that point of time, this can become very large, and it is still large, but it can still become very large. And there have been instances where large publishers can come to you directly, and we have cases like that where they come to you directly and offer reach to their customers minus any bit of contextual or this thing. It is just the set of publishers. So probably if I say, it is like going back where you had a website and you know what kind of customers are coming there, and you do what you normally do with a TV channel, spray and pray. What will happen is publishers are going to get smart. They will try to get more information about their own customers and then utilize that information to go to advertisers and said, there is a way where we can do something. It's a hard job. It's a not so efficient job as of now. But I believe there's a lot of efficiency will be built in through a lot of tools that will be developed. And that is a definite possibility in which future can move towards.
Interesting. So building some of these sort of all these audiences, right? Building buckets maybe of those and giving offering those to advertisers, right?
Yes.
Closing thoughts from you, Samyukta. I think since we're almost on time, what would you like to share? Maybe some thoughts on this.
Yeah. So Ankit, first off, thanks. I think it was a great conversation to begin with. And I think just one thing that I wanted to leave everybody, just as a thought was that, while we're all here to kind of, debate on whether this is good, bad, how will it change things for us, etc. But I think two universal insights as humankind. We have always resisted change. We've never liked anything new. Whether even when the first car came in, then there was a lot of resistance saying that, oh, it's polluting the environment. But it helped us move forward. And, so I think somewhere we will eventually learn to look at the positive side of all the change that's happening, because programmatic is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. How it will all evolve also is only going to get better and sharper. It's only going to help us. I think that ethical moral responsibility will lie with us in terms of how well we use it. I think this has just kind of opened the doors to, that gateway. Which brings me to the second universal insight is that we have always, as mankind, wanted things to just make our life simpler. So, anything that is going to help, things speeden up, anything that's going to help convenience is going to be something that's everybody's looking for, whether it's a consumer, whether it's a marketer, whether it's an advertiser. When you buy a phone, also speed matters. When you're looking at a Wi-Fi connection, speed matters. So I think even with programmatic, everything is going to evolve around the first of who can help me understand the consumer faster, who can help me take buying decisions faster, who can get me insights faster. So I don't think it's going anywhere. It's just about, I think, all of us trying to evolve a lot faster. And I think we should be there then.
Great. Thank you so much, Samyukta. I wish for the audience, we could have taken more questions. I appreciate all of you putting in those there, but we're just running short of time. And I would like to thank everybody in the panel. I think we've learned quite a bit today. There was very interesting insights about, how perhaps, the industry would look around. What are some of these biggest challenges, which I clearly see third party something which will probably, as we also, spend some more time around this, get more comfortable with programmatic, we'll probably find solutions to this, but there's still a long way. We do have solutions like contextual targeting as well as some ID solutions being looked into, but it's definitely not a solved problem as of today. So, perhaps an opportunity for all of us. Thanks all the panelists for coming in, joining in today and sharing your insights. And thank you to the audience for spending your Friday evening with us, listening to us instead of going out and having a beer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend.
Bye.
Bye-bye.